Welcome, Farewell fans. I'm MNG, and welcome to another one-on-one interview that we have going on. So we have Lawrence DeMarco here, and he's going to drop some knowledge on us. He has a wealth of experience when it comes to family law, and I know there's a lot of people out there that may have questions when it comes to family law. How do you go about, whether it's divorce, whether it's child support, you have questions, and I'm here to bring the answers. Lawrence, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for the invite, MNG. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, listen, my guests are the guests I had on here are just a wealth of knowledge, and you are another person that has a wealth of knowledge. So can you just tell us, what drove you to specialize in family law, and how has your personal experience with custody battles, shaped your approach to the legal practice?
Okay. I am a frustrated psychologist at heart. For whatever reason, parents steered me into law a little bit.
Okay.
My father is a practicing attorney. I always liked psychology books when I was in high school. So to me, that was a natural thing to do. It didn't happen. So as a lawyer, I thought, well, wait a minute, how can I really counsel people in stuff that mattered, their family? So I always wanted to dabble in family law, but our clientele came from a very blue collar, inner city background. And my dad, our firm did personal injury law, which was really lucrative. So we used family law as our lost leader.
Right.
We charged little to nothing, and that was our marketing to bring in personal injury clients. Now you can't get away with that in a high conflict case. So actually, I never became a family lawyer. I wanted to and realized no one had any money, and I dropped it. And so I gave a lot of free advice out, incidentally. Then I had a child with a high conflict mom. So then I saw the wars from the inside. There's a legal movie called The Client. I became the client. Or actually, no, it's a doctor one called The Patient. But listen, I became my own, a client. And I saw the evils of the court system from the inside. And I realized I couldn't afford a high conflict litigation that I was heading into. So I fired my lawyers because there was no professional courtesy to be given. They saw me as someone who could pay.
Right.
And so they were ratcheting up bills for meaningless stuff. So, and here I am giving free advice on the same stuff in my own law firm.
Mm-hmm.
So I represented myself and went through this high conflict thing. Now, the good news is I have a happy ending in my personal story. For me, I'm not going to give a sob story. I saw it all, but I came out on the other side. Things worked out.
Okay.
I had a good judge, and I have to say I was lucky, in part because I had a law degree. But I know everyone else isn't that lucky.
Right.
And I know what could have happened. And if I start talking about my son, I'll actually start getting emotional and tearing up because what almost could have happened, it didn't. But online, on Facebook, in all groups, you hear the horror stories. I don't have to tell you. I'm sure that you hear some of them yourself. But they're so awful. And so I wanted to make a difference. I always kind of wanted to be a social worker, or, I have a very altruistic father and save the world mentality. So I spent a good 4 years, maybe 5, making online videos teaching people how to support themselves. And when you go through the meat grinder of the family court system, there's actually a lot of people that do that. So I synthesize and gather all these supports and try and get people to handle some of the case themselves to help them be their own paralegal. But so you asked for links. People can see in the description portion of the video, my YouTube channel is called The Law Center. And if you type that in, I should come up at the top because I put so much time and work into it. And then I also made a family court custody boot camp, a little bit of a premium program for people who wanted everything organized, spoon-fed, and a lot more detail.
Right.
So I guess so the answer, that was a long answer to the question, which was never went into family law because I couldn't. Because I think that system is dead on arrival. It's broken as it is. Lawyers don't belong in it. So what I do is I make free online video resources to help people get through on their own. That's why I knew when you told me what your podcast was, I knew we'd be a good fit, a good match.
Oh, definitely. And I will agree with you. The family law system is broken. And I can only speak for the situation that I went through in Michigan, because it was kind of like fighting tooth and nail to go into a whole situation, not knowing what was going to happen. And I started my own case to get custody of my son. And the fight was uphill. So in my situation, the person was homeless, but that wasn't enough. They could not show up to court and the case get adjourned. And I still have to take off work to come. And not only that, if I miss court or if I didn't do anything per the order, I'm the one that gets thrown in jail. But I'm the one actively participating and actively trying to make a difference in another life. But the court doesn't see that. The only thing that they see from my experience is he can pay.
And it's your dad. There's a slight disadvantage of being male, but we'll wait for that. Hold that thought.
Like he's a provider, so, and I'm pretty sure there's stories that are across the nation of men that are fighting not only for custody, but they're also fighting for survival. They're going through these systems, whether they're going through divorce, whether they, had a one night stand, and instantly, had got somebody pregnant, and now that they have to face this, this barrier of being reduced to like minimum wage type costs, and they're making a substantial living, but you're reduced down to minimum wage because of the money that you're paying back. It's a very elaborate system that you have to get through in order to make your case. And sometimes you don't even get to make your case, and you're still just treading water trying to make your case. And just like, I worked in the court system, so I've seen both sides just like you have. And one of the things that I've learned is that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you do. The only thing that you can provide is money if they have provided assistance. If the state is the parent, and your child is the beneficiary, then you have to pay that money back in some way, shape, or form. And it's one of the craziest systems that I've come across and that I've heard people, because it doesn't die. It's forever continuous.
What people don't understand is it's not there for you. It's not there to support you. It's there to take your money and your resources. And there's movies and documentaries about, it's not to really protect the family. It's for a government to redistribute wealth, is what I've seen.
Wow. I never heard it like that. Redistribute wealth.
Or to control you. It's if they're going to take the time to hear your case, your high conflict case, there's a price to pay. The child support system is a way for, if they collect, they insist on having a payor and payee. This is the Social Security Act, the Title 4D, 4E incentives for how government is funded by collecting orders, by collecting payments of arrears orders, is how they fund their child protective services budget. So they set parents against each other, and not to mention legal fees. It's economy. It's like a $50 billion annual industry of lawyers, investigators, expert witnesses, all of whom are making a living on the suffering of families, parents, and children.
Now, one thing that I want to say along with that is, for anybody that has went through the system, one thing that I recognize in the system is that if you are going through the child support system and they haven't issued an order yet, arrears are still piling up before the order is even established how much you're going to pay. So once the case is started, from my experience, arrears are already being compiled. And then once the order for you to pay is there, you're already behind the 8 ball. You're not even ahead. And they don't even tell you that as you're going to court. So the more court dates you have to try to fight these arrears, then you get the order. They have there's already a substantial balance that you have before you even get the order to pay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the hardest game right there, is that it starts off at 0 when the case starts. Then the money starts to pile. Once you get your order, you can be $5,000 already in debt, trying to move forward. And you're like, well, why do I got to pay $500 a month? $250 each pay, because you're already behind the 8 ball and you don't even know it yet. Like it's the craziest scandal in the world, and
Oh, it is. It's awful, and you're fighting against so many different things at once. You're fighting against your ex, who is so angry at the breakup. Both of you are devastated, and therefore you have a pain, open wounds that is causing you both to be aggressive. So you're fighting. You have the initial, at least someone wants revenge, or someone is a sworn spouse, and that person wants to there's an inherent conflict. There's a movie, The War of the Roses, that illustrates the inherent conflict between two heartbroken people. The instinct is the last child, and then the rest of the system really doesn't aim to ease that, or there's enough players with financial incentives that causes the expense to drive up and really sends loving parents into a downward spiral.
That is true. They say the worst thing that can come out of a divorce is like both parties are just vengeful, vindictive. They just ugly.
Often there's both. Sometimes it can be one in a high. It really only takes one.
Yeah.
Two people who want to get along with, you don't hear them. They go through mediation, or they do an easy agreement. Those are not the cases that make the stories or the news. It's if one or both have that pain and that reflex to lash back out, then you either have one trying to ease or ease the savage beast, but it's going to go as long as that one person pushes it. And if both, then you have twice the trouble. But it really only takes one to get into that high conflict area that makes a statistic and takes up the court's resources.
I'm not going to say what I want to say. I don't think I want to get married.
Yeah, well.
All right. So, what were the specific challenges you faced during your 10-year custody battle? And, how did these experiences influence your understanding of the legal system?
The challenges that I faced were that I guess I would fit into, I wanted peace, and I didn't think that there'd ever be a situation where I couldn't imagine I'd ever be in a high conflict situation. But the challenge was that I did fit that high conflict model that you and I were just describing, where one person, because of a fight or flight response, an adrenaline rush when, let's call it abandonment, where my child's mom perceived that the situation was abandonment because things didn't work out. That caused, instead of flight or relax, it caused the fight response. So my challenge was that basically what we just were describing, that the system didn't make any effort to see what was going on to resolve it in early hearings. No one wanted to make a decision. And the lawyer, her lawyer, accepted, in fairness, he considered himself a zealous advocate, which is what an antagonistic legal system does. Lawyers have in their ethics, they don't have to scrutinize their own client. They're supposed to be a zealous advocate. So he accepted my ex's word as gospel and then chose to be a zealous advocate, which was really causing, to make a long story short, much to do about nothing, but really it was allowing my son to be a pawn in games that were really designed just for engagement, to keep a fight going because of not wanting to let go. So that created an enormous expense when I was trying to, from my perspective, trying to diffuse conflict. That was the biggest challenge, to get through with a minimum time expense, a minimum legal expense, just to parent, just to be a father of my son. But any time there was any conflict, which is easy to create, just not dropping the child off and pretending he's sick. Yeah, but when he's sick, I'm still supposed to get the child. Or my income as a personal injury attorney, as a businessman, my income fluctuated. So you show your tax return, then you say we adjust the order sufficiently.
Right.
But it was easy just to raise it when I had a good year, but I had to. So let's figure half the years were lower than the year before.
Right.
So if we had 18 years and 9, half were larger than the year before, half were lower, 9 times I had to go to court just to get it to where it should have been. I won 9 out of 9 times, but the cost, the time expense, driving a 2-hour round trip to the county courthouse. 2 hours, you wait anywhere from 4 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Twice. Once for the settlement conference, which they didn't even bother to pretend that they were ever going to agree to anything. And then another 4 to 8 hours for the testimony and litigation. So you're talking about 16 hours?
Down the drain.
9 times. Just for when there's no conflict. Just to modify based upon a tax return or based upon the income. So that's what I went through. When you're saying the biggest challenge. So the question is, do I handle that myself or get a lawyer? I'm going to handle it myself. But for the average person to go through that, 16 times 400. Just for a year, when you're trying to reduce your support by $30 a week,
Right.
$100 a week. I mean, it adds up. So it's something you got to fight for.
Right.
But for that type of price, I had to pay. And that was from dealing with a high conflict individual who complained that she was being oppressed to her attorney. So the attorney fights, so he gets paid. And bottom line is, both of us net a loss every time we went into court. So that is where I think lawyers make things worse. And again, I was trying to just follow the orders or follow the law. So that was my biggest challenge, realizing that I had to learn everything on my own and be my own lawyer.
So learning that stuff on the fly and seeing what it did. And let me ask you this. And,
Well, I kind of misspoke. Hold your thought. Let me just say I did have it because I had a law degree, but I don't practice family law.
Right.
So I had to learn what I needed to do to represent myself, and I was my own client. So, it's if you ever go to court, it's time expensive for you to do what you have to do, and then you also have to litigate for you. So I probably would have gotten fired if I had a job during that time. You're laughing because you understand. You obviously understand.
I do.
So I would have gotten fired, but even though I didn't get fired and probably had a 20% loss of my income, I saved all my savings, or no, I saved a lot of my savings. But I mean, it was still, look, if you lose 20% of your income, there goes your savings, really. But my point is, I would have been bankrupt. I would have lost my house. I would have lost any college money for my son, just if I had to pay a lawyer for all the time that I put in. Which is why I do what I do as an advocate. It's not right. I'm ashamed of my profession for exploiting people who go through it. Now you had a question. I apologize for. Go ahead. Forgive me for interrupting.
No. That's good. That's good. So my question is, from the mental health aspect, what did it do to you?
Well, it's like if you ever talk to someone who's going through something like that, you'll see you lose joy. You lose enjoyment of life during that time. So, and I know you're asking me to share. I know I don't have to tell you if you went through it. And I recall during the high conflict part of custody when I didn't see my son, I remember I can measure this objectively I needed a stiff martini at lunch every day to numb, to calm myself down. And that was daily, or that was every time I went to lunch, I would get something really stiff, and it was natural. I remember not even thinking twice. It was like I needed medicine. So, and then during that, so what else did it do to me? You're talking, so let's measure it by symptoms. Insomnia, a constant feeling of your chest pounding, depression, anxiety. We'll start there. And the things that will also go to that. And that was probably 2 full years. That was 2 full years. Every pickup, now I'm going to start getting upset. Every time I picked up my son, I remember repeating 4 hymns to get through it, because it was such a brutal exchange. There was such unpleasantness at it, and he was witnessing it, and not knowing whether I was going to see my son. I remember reciting prayers the whole way up.
Man,
I was coming from strength. I was self-sufficient. I could do a lot of this on my own. So how about the person who was being bankrupt or didn't have the money to do it?
Right.
Things worked out. I'm telling you, things worked out for me. I was lucky. Now, if I had that toll when I was strong enough to do all this myself, it's because partly, in no small part, because of my profession and the legal system that wanted it this way, that was supporting how many families and shore houses and vacation places in Europe. This was the system that was, or people who just didn't care. They were just making you a pawn, and they never wanted to make a decision, even though people were fighting to save their families, because I was really fighting for access to my child. So it was 2 years where I had to fight tooth and nail just for the every other weekend. And then it increased, and then things worked out, and there's a happy ending, like I told you. But that time, never forget it.
I don't know. You may not know this, but your words resonate with me so much, just over the mental health period of it all, because it takes a lot of strength. It takes a particular attitude to keep pressing forward, going through that legal system, whether you're doing it on your own or you're getting an attorney. It could jeopardize your job. You said you had insomnia. No, there's been times I sat outside the courtroom, and because I don't go to court, I don't have those experiences like that. Walking into court is almost like a panic attack.
That's right.
Your heart is beating out your chest because you don't know what's going to happen. And you've heard things that people go to jail from going into these rooms, and they just get locked up, for unforeseen reasons, because you may have only heard one half of the story. So, and I'm sure your words resonate with everybody that's going to watch this, or is going to watch this show, that they have been through that experience, walking into the courthouse, hoping for a solid outcome, only to get an adjournment, to have to take another day off to go back in, waiting for a resolution that may or may not come the next time they go to court.
So, yes, and I knew you knew where I was coming from. So, in the remainder of our time, I actually have a very positive message that I want to get to about what resources there are for people in this desperate position. free or really low cost resources that people can do. I don't want to give you a soliloquy, so maybe we can just keep doing the Q&A.
Yeah, yeah. So going through all of that, you started this YouTube channel and it provided valuable resources, for self-represented litigants. And I can see what inspired you to create this platform. Can you give us a little bit more information about
Yeah, before I didn't do it right away. What happened was I wanted to run for judge.
it? Okay.
I wanted to become a judge, and I got involved in politics. And what my county needed, my local political party needed, was, I thought, media and news, because we were out of power. So I produced a YouTube channel and I taught myself video. I'm going to make a real long story short. And that was several years. When I wanted to run for judge, I knew I needed a video. And this is right when social media was growing and booming. We're
Yeah.
talking about 2017, 18. Donald Trump came into power. A lot of people were upset and angry. So I figured, okay, well, the out of party, well, anyway, I figured the way to spread the message is through my own control the media itself, be the media, and interview candidates and write stories that I felt needed to get out there on my own. Not write, but publicize stories. So I taught myself social media, video creation, and then I ran for judge when I thought it was my turn in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
2018. So I produced a campaign video for ethics reform in the court.
Okay.
And all I did was post it on my one page with no search algorithms. Some people were following me from politics and they spread it organically. No search terms, no keywords. I just wanted my own local community to see it. And that wasn't the story. The story was some people who went to family court shared it with your friends, and organic caught fire across the country.
Mm.
Because this community all knows each other. People who are really hurt in family court connect with each other online. So people thought, hey, here's this lawyer wanting to be a judge. They all got behind me, and I met dozens and dozens and dozens of, close friends, or at least all became Facebook friends. And I was invited to give talks at rallies in Harrisburg. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I did a parents' march in DC, and I was one of the keynote speakers. And then after that, what happened was, I started, because I found all these advocates and learned I wasn't alone. Well, I did know it, but it's one thing to know it up here, and then
Right.
it's other to meet the emotion. So then I went to a group called the Parental Alienation Study Group, third annual conference or fourth annual conference, whatever it was, in Philly. And I put a word behind what I went through. Parental alienation, when your child is used as a pawn against you.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have the language for my own case. And I never knew what it was called. And they gave me a vocabulary and language. And I knew other people going through didn't have it, because I didn't have it and I was a lawyer. The judge didn't have it. My lawyer didn't have it. Her lawyer didn't have it. No one had this language. So I did 45 videos over like 3 or 4 year period, spreading that word. And then when the videos did well, I became a YouTube partner as a creator. Then I knew, okay, well, why not just teach them? Why just teach the psychology? Like I told you, I was a
Right.
frustrated psychologist. Then I started saying, well, I could do this with law too. And I told people what I thought they needed to know. And then online courses got big, like they started exploding. And I was, half the time I was spending, I was just putting up these free videos. So I tried to make a premium program. And what I did was I made a paralegal training. I want to call it Family Court University, but what I called it was the Family Court Child Custody Boot Camp, or Family Law Custody Boot Camp.
Okay.
And what it is 10 hours of training you to be your paralegal. Because what lawyers do is there's enough paperwork to do that they're billing out $400 an hour.
Yeah.
Or 500 or 600 or 3 if you're in a good area. But bottom line is they're paying a paralegal $25 an hour to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm training you to be a family court paralegal, so you can say to a lawyer, nah, I got this covered. I know what to do. I just need you to go to court for me. or whatever you need the lawyer to do. So it is a comprehensive training and synthesis of all the free resources across the web and how to find it. And then I duplicate and summarize a lawyer's law school curriculum as it relates to custody court, not family court, like not divorce, because then you have to know economics, you have to know pensions, and you have to know a lot more, but child custody.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's really where people lose their houses and lose their shirts, because they lose their kid, because they take their kids away.
Yeah.
So when your kids are being taken away, or when you're fighting a false allegation, and it's really about custody, we're in a no-fault country. So you're really not going to lose money for a false allegation. You are, but my point is, it's really about the kids being used as pawns. So I teach, so you know your own theory. So when someone like you was walking into court, you don't have the fear of the unknown. You know what the lawyer knows. You're just not as experienced and not as seasoned in terms of litigating, but you know how to present the memos. You know how to research the law, or you know what the law is, because the law is not complicated. The law is whatever the judge wants it to be.
Right.
It's discretion. It's the best interest standard. So that's the law. So when you realize there's nothing that you don't know, it takes away. The idea is to empower the individual and take away that anxiety. And that's what I produced. And there's one more resource I want to make sure I get out now. I'm sure you heard of artificial intelligence.
Yes. Yes.
Generative AI.
Yes.
What that is. So right now, there is a chat bot. And there's more than one, but I'm going to talk about one. And it's free. I am not a marketer for this company. And I want to tell you, there is a custom chat, just like a chat that you may, if you want to log into a big business that you want to do a sale, and you say, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, your chat bot to help you with sales with this company. Well, it's a lawyer chat bot. I think his name is Noah, now that I think about it.
Okay.
And it's done by a company called Research AI. And Research AI has a professional chatbot in every discipline of professional academia, like anything there is to know. This company built really high caliber professional chatbots. Well, there's one, and this is something else I'll put into our resources. But talking to this thing is a free lawyer on call. It's like a free self-represented court lawyer that'll call and coach you as long as you want. You can keep it on the phone as long as you want, or keyboard, but you actually can turn on a speaker so you can have it talk to you too. So to me, that is so powerful. Or look, I tested it, and I'll tell you it's powerful. I'll tell you it's better. It's more thorough than I would be, or than the average lawyer. Not the average lawyer. It'll be more thorough than the best lawyer would be, because it'll never miss. It has no personality or no hidden agenda, no financial agenda. It's free and tells you everything that you need to know.
Really?
That plus my course, I think, is a 1-2 punch.
Oh, wow. So just to clarify, there is a chatbot similar to Gemini, ChatGPT, but it's specifically for solid academias, whether it's, let's say, accounting, lawyer. Is that what you're telling me? Like,
Yes.
I am thoroughly shocked.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Remember what's going on in online with generative AI. They're still beta testing it. So its existence and it's near perfect. At least your YouTubers can at least see. So I'm going to just put this up. So you're saying, just so you don't think that this is some hypothetical thing, there it is. Okay.
Wow.
Now that link is in the link. You can't see the link. I think my tablet hit it. But so that is online, and your homework, MNG, is for you to go test it and then do a YouTube blog and say how awesome it is. Because I haven't stopped talking about it since I found this thing. I say everyone I know, but there's not money marketing it yet because it's free now. So they're not going to spend for you. They have enough people testing it for free. But even when it gets behind the paywall, it's going to be the best thing that happened to self-represented litigants.
Oh, man.
It's and you can upload your own case into it and say, this is my file. And this is what I would assume is in her file. Here's all our text messages. Here's all our emails. Here's the valuation reports. Here's the petitions. Here's the order. And here's what I think. Here's my argument. And here's what her lawyer just said was her argument. Or here's our memos. Give me some strategy. There it is. Like that. And then you write up your own memo. And here's the plan. Now, I'm really nutshelling this. Then the plan is you do that for yourself. And then you use the chat to write your motions, your memos, your summaries. And then before you ever talk to a lawyer who's going to charge you for the time the lawyer takes a crap thinking about your case, you're going to spoon feed the whole case. So instead of that lawyer reading 200 pages of what your case is and her case is, they're going to read a 2-page summary. And you can say, I know it's only going to take you 20 minutes. Or if you have to read more, it's going to take you an hour or two. It's not going to take you 10 to 20. And you're going to save 90% of your fee.
Wow. I am mind blown. I need the link.
Well, I'll be a repeat guest too, is the other thing I want to say. And I have some types of this one. I've been lecturing. I haven't done a YouTube video because when I do a YouTube video, I try and be perfect. So I'm kind of I'm on the lecture circuit, not so much the YouTube one, but maybe we can just talk about that. Someone like yourself or someone will bring it out of me because it's harder to write from scratch. But I'm going to update my program. I've been really busy with our next topic, the International Council for Men and Boys. So I've been procrastinating, for the YouTube video. But like I said, I'm on the lecture circuit talking about this.
Okay. Now let's talk about the International Council for Men and Boys. Like, what is the most pressing issue that men and boys are facing today?
I would say, as you worded it, the most pressing issue, I would have to say, as stated, family court. I think the courts is the worst issue because what we've done is we've broken it down to 12 areas of male inequality. And most of them, like 8 of them, are directly or indirectly related to how you get destroyed in family court. And of these are issues that do affect women.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have women who suffer from the things that I'm going to be talking about, but men do more. Okay. So we call it the International Council for Men and Boys, but I love my wife. I love my mother, my grandmother, my cousins, my female cousins, and I don't have any blood sisters, but I have a lot of female friends. So I want these issues resolved, not just for men. And women, life is hard for women too. So I'm going to say that women have to face, in some countries, this is an international council, women face something called genital mutilation. They have to wear hijabs. Mm-hmm. They have to go into forced marriages by their own parents.
Right.
And women will tell you, like in the 80s or 90s, they couldn't get loans without getting their husband to co-sign, even if they were the wage earner. And I acknowledge that. And I want all my guy friends online listening to me to acknowledge that too. Don't ever go onto a, angry man, hate women attitude. The items that I'm going to talk about mostly face men, but women have their bad time too. The thing is, women have billions of dollars in nonprofits fighting these, that women have raised awareness after the Me Too movement. And there's now what men are going through is what I would call an overcorrection. I see this as a very winnable battle. It's a battle, and we're going to have to fight probably for years just for equality. But during that time, you will be more effective if you acknowledge women and that it's hard. Life is hard on both genders. But when you talk about #gender equality, you also want to look at men. And if you don't, you're going to have a huge imbalance. And that's what we have now. So here's the 12 items: education, health. The boy crisis is kind of a catch-all, but boys are getting it the hardest. 4 is false allegations. 5 is victims of violence. 6 is parenting, shared parenting, which I know is something that you want to talk about. 7 is criminal systems, meaning men get punished in court so much worse than women do for this. You're nodding your head for the same offense. Partner abuse. Now, women had a big fight to get protection from gender violence, but women have the weight of the law behind them, because if both of you are hitting each other, it's the man who gets arrested. So this is now an equal thing, but women have all the resources for their victims. But there's something like over 2,000 home domestic violence shelters for women. But if there's an issue between a man and a woman, the man gets put on the street and becomes, my 9th area of inequality, homeless. 76% of homelessness are men, but the shelters are for the women and families. So 10, workplace, men are 15 times more likely to die at work because men do the hazardous jobs like building bridges and going into a coal mine. 11 is reproductive rights. Women can have it, abort it, or adopt it. Men have no rights when it comes to reproductive choice. And then the 12th item of inequality is media bias. Think of the term toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
That's now considered redundant. When you think of man, you think negative. And that's because of media coverage for the inequality that happened to women. And it's okay to raise an issue or to talk about a story, but the statistics show things are more equal, but men have been demonized, vilified, and to the point where there's that word toxic masculinity. So listen, we raise awareness, we make press releases, and we are trying to address these 12 items of male inequality while respecting our sisters in countries like Muslim countries where they can't even go to school.
That is 12.
Yeah.
I am.
And there's more, like men are subject to the draft. There's mandatory draft in most countries, and I think Israel and there might be 2 others are the only 2 countries that require women to fight. And the whole idea of male disposability. Men will die for their family.
Well, I know that the U.S. They just instituted, like, it's fairly recent that they just instituted that women is now have to start to apply for the draft for the selective service now.
Well, there's no mandatory draft.
No
in case of a draft. I'm not aware of that. Not every state.
No, I believe it's across the U.S. If I'm not mistaken. I remember reading an article that women are now have to sign up for the selective service when they turn 18, just like men do.
Well, fortunately, we can just jump fast. I'll take your word for it. I don't know. Contrary, my understanding is that it's discussed. It's not mandatory yet.
Okay.
Well, again, it's not really right because we have a volunteer army at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's the International Council for Men and Boys. And related to family court, you'll notice in there, one is false allegations, one is partner abuse to make sure that men have shelters too. The other, homelessness is a result of, that's the leading cause of bankruptcy is divorce, and it makes you much more likely to be homeless, especially after a false allegation or if you become a victim of abuse. Criminal system, men get punished for there's guilt by accusation with false allegations. And so those are all touching family law, as you can see.
So one of the things I do want to jump on that you spoke about is false allegations, because I feel like false allegations without proof runs rapid, and then there's no consequence to the person that filed a report. So, for instance, years ago, when I worked in the court system, a young lady accused her father of CSC, If anybody that know what them acronyms is, I'm not gonna go say the whole thing, but CSC, and they got to court.
Sexual abuse.
Yep. Young lady got on the stand and basically stated that it was a false report because she was mad at her father because I think he took a phone away or he didn't want her to go to a party. And a man lost his job, possibly lost his, homelessness because a child, his own child, made up this accusation and probably destroyed his life, destroyed their trust, destroyed their bond over something insignificant.
And that's even not to mention that 20% of divorces are 10 to 20% are high conflict where false allegations run rampant. Usually a child is coached to do that. But no, it happens where even foster children will make up lies for control, for empowerment, or whatever reason. I'm not going to get into that.
Right.
But what you have in family court is you have a system where the decisions are so responsible. It's easy just to say, well, we need to be safe. So let's take these preventive measures. You can't see your child because she falls, because either the wife or the child. Let me restate that. One parent falsely made an accusation and child made an accusation against the other appointment. For ladies watching, it's man or woman. And then you have to have supervision. Then the court says the only way we can prevent this from happening again is if you have supervised custody. And if there's no family member to supervise, then you're going to have to pay hundreds of dollars a visit just to see your child in a courthouse for an hour or two. And there's not enough time to hear maybe all those allegations, or you have to wait until you get through some type of criminal case, or you never even get justice at all. But during that time, it's guilt by suspicion. You're still ostracized from your community. As you said, you lose your job, you lose all your friends, you lose your neighbors, you have to move, and you're in effect disabled and canceled because a court system accepts the allegation as serious enough that they have to give it the validity as if it were true.
Right.
Now, there is false allegation penalties on the books, but they're not enforced. They're really written out. And so there's laws, there's ways that the system can feel more comfortable applying penalties for false allegations, like time taken back. If you make a false allegation and you don't see your child, and someone doesn't see their child and is then proven innocent, you get all the time that you missed back. Now that's actually a great deterrent, because if you don't see a child for a year, you got to work that back, and you're going to become primary custodian after that's done. So you can lose custody by making a false allegation just in the time that someone loses, and that's an effective deterrent.
Yeah.
If it's found to be false, or
I think that another deterrent would be to use those policies that's in the book to prevent occur the false allegations without proof.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
you need corroborating evidence rather than just the word, an uncorroborated word. And well, yeah, I mean, so that's the general concept, and that's another issue that the courts struggle with. It
is. Now, can you give some just a few examples of ICMB initiatives just advocating for men's rights, and promoting that shared parenting? We know we have a lot of information that's out there, and we have the 12 as you had mentioned, the false allegations and everything.
So we are a kind of like a clearinghouse. We have a sister organization that's called the Domestic Abuse Violence International Alliance that has members. So, and we have a network, or at least a contact list, of organizations that are family friendly. that are nonprofits that provide resources related to some of these 12 areas of disadvantage. So what we do, and you can find this on our website, also in the description portion of this video, menandboys.net. And one other thing that we do is we promote, or we raise awareness in November. November is Men's Equality Month. So if this runs in November, that would be perfect timing. Hopefully not after that.
Hey,
In recognition of Men's Equality Month, which is November's International Men's Day, is November 19th.
okay.
And there's a woman's version in March. So women had March, and we figure, well, hey, well, we're a gender too. Just like Father's Day came after Mother's Day, now we've got International Men and Boys in November,
Okay.
Men's Equality Month. So an example is shared parenting. To deal with men who are more out of custody than not, a presumption of near 50-50 or equal, as close to equal as you can get, shared parenting, unless you prove by clear and convincing evidence that there's a reason not to.
Right.
For false allegations. Now, this is not our initiative. Well, actually, one thing that we're promoting is really restoring the presumption of innocence, so men don't have to plea, just basically strengthen those constitutional protections and not to allow language in an investigation that presumes guilt.
Right.
So to restore the presumption of innocence, we're really big on that. Others are the time taken back bill. Now that's not ours. He's not a member of Davia. His name is Robert Garza, who passed a bill in Texas, but we're going to promote that bill across the country. My baby, my personal task is fatherhood commissions across the country. Commissions for greater father-family involvement, which solves boys and children have better results in education, mental health, solve the boy crisis, and avoid a whole bunch of negative things when fathers are involved.
Right.
Education, better educated. So that solves a world of trouble by having fatherhood commissions and promoting, giving fathers resources on how to co-parent and teach them about their responsibilities, job trainings, things like that. So there's a few.
And that's amazing. I love to hear what your organization is doing. And that bill in Texas, I hope that goes like viral and widespread across the nation, because that is something that is needed for all the individuals out there that's going through similar situations or have gone through the situation and may not have won and want to double back and try again. So I think that is all powerful.
Yeah, I just met Robert Garza at a conference in Connecticut this past weekend.
That's awesome. Well, Lawrence, hey, thank you for coming on to the show. I know all the fans are going to like this. Make sure y'all check out the description. I'm going to have all the links and information down there so you can go ahead and check out the free videos and get some free resources to help you out. We're going to check you on the next go around. Peace.
Peace.